Vic Rebrow. Let's play a classical Sicilian, I guess. He goes for the C3 variation. It's the Alapin Sicilian. I guess it was delayed. He didn't play C3 right away. He played this first. It's defending the pawn with the queen. Okay, let's develop my knight. It looks like it's just going to be some kind of closed Sicilian. So let's set up the fianchetto. Try and keep pressure on the dark squares here. Yeah, closed Sicilian. Let's ask this bishop if he wants to take my knight. No. I could pin his knight. Well, it's not a pin, but if the knight moves, I would take the bishop. Taking the knight, though, is not something I really want to do. I'll just take back with this knight. Why don't we expand on the queen side? This does leave a loose knight, but I can defend it in one move. With either the queen or the bishop, but probably bishop b7 is what I'm thinking. Not yet. Maybe I want to put my rook on the b file. Pawn here. He takes. I can't take back. Okay, I do need to play this. Oh, I could have moved my rook to b8, I guess, instead. Anyway, b5. He takes. I take. He takes, I take. The knight is defended. I have a pawn here, he has a pawn here, and my bishop's scope is extended. He doesn't have to take, maybe he can push. I will still try and extend the scope, and if he takes my rook, I will take back with the queen, getting a battery like so. If he doesn't take my rook, I'll probably lift my queen up. Because I'd really, I guess, rather have a rook here than rather have a rook there than the queen, and I'd like to keep an eye on this pawn too. So this knight is free to move. So let's go ahead and take here. Now, knight here, he will take it. Maybe pawn here then. You know what? He can. He could have taken my knight and then taken this pawn. That's been there. That's been in the position for a while. Yeah, ever since here. Well, he probably took back. But yeah, so this move allowed him to do that. He declined. Okay, let's start by kicking that bishop now that he moved his knight away. And then maybe I can get my knight to a good square. Oh, I can't get my knight there. Ha. I cannot get my knight there. Can I distract his bishop in some way? I was going to double there if he gave me the chance. I'll take that. Solves the problem of what to do with that knight. Let's bring the other knight out. Going to bring a rook over to the A file and maybe penetrate here. Threaten to penetrate here. Rook, queen, knight. This is open. So he's just going to wear down my center there. Let's defend it. Not my center, my king side. I wonder if I'm threatening to take. Let's pose that rook. I think I'd like to put my bishop here on f6. Don't want my queen getting distracted away from defense of this pawn here. So he takes right away. I could take with the queen. Now, if I take with the queen, yeah, once again, I have to worry about this pawn. That's why bishop f6 might have been a better reply. Okay, let's just defend that solidly. I have a terrible bishop here. But, well, we'll see what we can do. Yeah, I'm defending my rook so I can move my knight. Okay, he goes there. He switches to the other side. That's an interesting strategy. That's I think I'll just trade off this knight. This bishop was not doing much. I mean, I could have gone for trading off this bishop, but I think the knight is more dangerous in this position. Yeah, he takes with the queen. Okay, so let's penetrate on the king side here. On the queen side, I mean. So I can bring my rook down. His dark squared bishop is out of play. His light squared bishop and queen are not enough to mate me, I don't think. And rook here, check. King has to go here. There's no good way to mate him there, though. So maybe just rook here and trade off the rooks. Okay, kind of forces it then. Yeah, I can check for a while, I guess, here. He goes there. He's settling for a draw. I will settle for a draw here. Yeah, there's not much to do here. And there is a big risk. If I ever move this knight, he's got bishop here and queen here. If I leave off defense of these squares, he's also got queen over here to the back rank. That would be pretty fatal. So I needed to keep the pressure on. Anyway, let's see if we can get another game. Maybe play a rapid game this time. Oya Nuk. Oh, 2063. Strong player. Well, I just played a Sicilian. Try the French. Play the French. It's a solid defense. Not if you play the win hour, however. The win hour has had a bad reputation recently, at least at the top level. I still think it leads to interesting play. Certainly playable at the club level. Yeah, that's the normal response. Pushing the pawn. Is he pausing to remember his theory? I mean, I play a sideline where I kick the bishop first, which temporarily sacrifices a pawn in the center, but you get it back with a queen maneuver. But that's not the main line. This is the main line. You push and then kick the bishop. Well, he's got time to think about it. Maybe he can come up with something clever. Yeah, that's a move. Usually this is kind of welcome. Because the dark squared bishop, the light squared bishop for black is the bishop that is difficult to develop. So now I have no major problems with my development here. And just put pressure on the center in the typical French fashion. And I should slow down at this point, because we're all out of theory. Yeah, he's defending this pawn. My bishop is loose. The knight could come here. And if I go back here, it actually wins the bishop here and messes up my pawns, so my bishop might go here. But on the other hand, I really want to develop this knight here and put more pressure on the center. Maybe I could start with this pen. He's just going to castle. I could start by retreating my bishop here, so he doesn't gain any tempos, and the bishop stays on a good diagonal, and if he kicks it with the knight, I can drop back here. Or leave it. Bishop here, knight here, bishop here, knight here would be annoying. Knight there would be annoying. Okay, we'll start out with this move. I was just imagining this knight maneuver here to here. Hitting my queen. It's not supported by a pawn there, but it's still a good square for the knight. Yeah, and as expected, he castles. He still is going to get there, it looks like. Oh, he goes there. So this is a different idea. This is the knight coming into this square. So let's castle first, so that's not a check when he goes there. Yeah, I did not anticipate that move. But I think it's okay. And I still want to get my knight to here and gang up on that pawn. Bishop here. Kick the knight first, make it commit. If the knight hops in here, I can actually take the pawn, because if he takes back with my knight, his knight is hanging. I take the pawn, knight takes knight, queen takes knight. So the bishop is asking me, do I want to move my knight? And I say, yes, I do, actually. Maybe the bishop is trying to prevent me from playing f6, but I don't have to play f6 if I can just take the pawn. He can defend it, of course. He can defend it. But if he defends it, I guess I can kick the knight and then put my bishop here and bring another attacker. Well, one of the advantages of playing a less popular opening is your opponent may not know the best plans. But I shouldn't overlook the fact that my opponent is a strong player. So even a bad position against a strong player can turn around pretty quickly. One little slip and they're back in the game. But I'm happy with the way things are going so far for black. Queen. I defended with the queen. That is interesting. So yeah, my plan was to kick the knight. Put the bishop here. Oh, he couldn't put the rook there. Ah, my bishop was controlling that square. Still, it's good to kick the knight. I don't have to immediately take that pawn, or attack the pawn, but I can immediately kick the knight because he doesn't have any good squares to go to forward, so he has to go back. That's an interesting intermediate move. So if I take his knight, he takes my bishop. And then I take the pawn. So I've won a pawn, but my extra pawn is this doubled pawn here. If I take the bishop, I take the pawn back with the rook, it'll be defending this pawn. Pawn takes knight, pawn takes bishop, rook takes pawn. His move, he's got 2 pawns here and here, which are both weak. I have 2 pawns here and here, which are both weak, but I have an extra pawn in the center. He'll have a dark squared bishop. I will have 2 knights. He'll have 1 knight and a bishop. And my rooks will be on open files. Well, he can bring a rook immediately to attack this pawn. And could move my knight, I guess. The other way to play this would be pawn takes knight, pawn takes bishop, knight takes pawn, queen takes pawn, knight here. So it's a good square for the knight, and I'm attacking this pawn. I just didn't like the retreats. I could put the bishop here. Then he has to retreat. His knight, I guess. Well, let's see if he finds some other trick here. I think he has to move the knight now. So those other lines, it just wasn't clear to me if I got any advantage out of that. So let's keep the material on if I can't see a way clear to an advantage. This knight still can't come forward because knight takes, queen takes knight. But this is typical play from a strong player, right? They they don't give up easily. Okay, I think this is what is he going to? He can maybe desperado his knight. I play knight takes pawn. He could play knight takes pawn. I could play knight takes knight check. No, I can't. He can't do that. He can't take with the queen. He has no check. With this knight, I mean. This knight can't move with check. He can take a pawn as a desperado, but then I can take here with check and then take his knight back, so that just loses a piece. So he has to take, and I can take here. So I won a pawn, and it's a center pawn too. This is good for me, and this is backwards. So I think that was a mistake. I mean, I was about to say, strong players always do this. They try and keep their pieces forward and active at all costs. But some cases the cost is too high. You really should just retreat. So now I have a definite advantage. But as I said, a strong player will find a way to turn it around many times. Okay, I need to put a rook on the open file, get some pressure on the backward c-pawn. Bishop on this diagonal might be good. Defending and attacking. So yeah, so he immediately breaks here. I need to take. After I take, he can start harassing my queen with his rook. Do I have a good square for my queen? I take. He puts his rook here. My queen can go here, I guess, or here. Let's see. I could move my bishop first, right? I could put the bishop here, threatening mate. Then he would block with the pawn, I guess. Can't block with the bishop or the queen. You can block with either of these pawns. Then I could take. And then if he puts my rook here, puts his rook here to harass my queen, I can put my queen here. Defended by the bishop. Let's go ahead and throw in an intermediate move. If he can throw in those intermediate moves, we can too. You just have to be careful they don't backfire. Like if he had a way to put a bishop here, that would be bad for me. Yeah, actually, that's he's setting that up, isn't he? So he can put the bishop there, and I will have to move the queen to the side, I guess. Puts the queen. Just takes with the queen. So now, if I put my, yeah, I have to be careful about my bishop now. Because if he puts his bishop here, the queen and the bishop will be triangulating on my bishop. I can push a pawn. He can hit me with a rook. Let's bring a rook out to defend my bishop. This is where it gets dangerous. I can find some forcing moves. White has forcing moves. He just needs to find a clever sequence of forcing moves to leave me in a bad position. That's not so forcing. I want to kick that bishop back. Okay, now I want to move my queen from its slightly awkward position. Or maybe move my bishop first. Put the bishop here. He attacks the queen. Not so good. Drop the bishop back. Step aside with the queen. Step forward with the queen. I like this. I'm thinking that maybe the queen can come back to this square here. And the bishop can move to this square. Maybe this pawn could come forward to kick the queen, put the bishop here. Let's erase some of these lines. So a pawn there and a bishop there. And then he could still kick my bishop away by pushing that pawn forward, but that would lead to some trades, plus he'd have to worry about defending his bishop first. you know, the other move I was thinking was just dropping my queen back to defend, but I think that this is not the time to play a simple defensive move like that. I mean, that's probably one of the ways I get into trouble. I play defensive moves when I should play more aggressively. Can penetrate with his rook here. Maybe it's a good move. Then he could bring the other rook on, attack this bishop a second time. Oh, he moves that one first. Okay, so I was going to clear the path for the bishop here. Kick the queen first. Now let's settle this situation with the rooks first. Let's take some squares away from the queen too, so limits where the queen will go once I kick it. He can kick my queen. I have squares here and here to go to. Yeah, he's probably trying to figure out a way to get his queen in here and rook here and mate me. Okay, that is just inviting a trade. I take. How about if I kick the queen first? So where does it go? Let's take the arrows off. So I kick the queen. He can't just go anywhere because this is hanging, and it doesn't move with check, so he can't take first. So I'll take the queen. So the queen has to move. He has to stay on this row. Isn't this winning? Ah, no, he can go somewhere where I trade the queen. Or I have to trade the queen. I think it'll be a little easier to play, though, with the queens off. Of course, my opponent might be an expert in rook and pawn endgame, in which case I might be in for a tough fight. Oh, look at the time. We're using up all our time here. Gonna have to start moving a little faster soon. Yeah, that's what I thought. So I think I will take it. Leaves his rooks a little bit out of play. And oppose the other rook. The closer I can get to a pawn up, king and pawn endgame, the better my winning chances are. Ah, he found a tactic. Okay, so I can take here. He can take there. I can keep taking because the next one is a check. Yeah, what'd I tell you about these stronger players? They're good at this stuff. I should have noticed that tactic. It's a pretty common idea. He keeps taking, but I take with check. Oh, oh. Yeah, somehow I thought I was winning a piece there. Okay, check here, go here. I think I need to defend the pawn first. He goes there. Okay, I can check and take something here or defend. He's got me in a defensive position, but I think I needed to defend that. I was going to go with check. Actually, I have a passed pawn. I should probably just push it. If I push my pawn forward, he can play a check here. And however I take, whether I take with the rook or the king, he'll get a pawn, this pawn. So what to do? If I take and he takes and I put my rook behind the pawn, there's always this danger there. That this pawn is pretty close to queening, and his rook maybe can check my king from behind, and he has to work it down. But oh, we're getting pretty close here. He can move his rook with check. Yeah, it's true. I'm not threatening this pawn, am I? Probably a draw, huh? Yeah, I check, he takes, I take. Doesn't help. I think I'm going to go for a repetition here. Unless he blunders. Well, he's got a check. I can attack his rook. He just brought his king back. Well, I can bring my king forward. If I can keep inching forward like this, yeah, so I put my rook here. He does something. And I push this pawn forward with check. He has to take with the rook. I can take this one. But he still has this pawn. Anyway, I got my rook to a more active position. Okay, do this trick now. Check. He takes, I take. Check the king once. So anyway, my rook is in, my king is in a better position to stop his pawn than his king is to stop my pawn. Pretty small difference. See, we might be in trouble. We might be in trouble. Let's see. Ah, he decided to go on the defensive here. See, without his king around, my pawn just marches straight down. But he can push me back too. It's very close. Ah, and his king is sheltered from checks here. An important point. So here. Gotta escape at the critical moment. He takes my pawn, I take his pawn, and it's a draw. He checks me, I run out. But anytime he stops checking, I get a queen. Let's offer a draw. He agreed to a draw. Yeah, it's not much he can do. I mean, he can keep putting pressure on me. I mean, every time he moves his king, it's a mate threat. But I can just go back and forth. Now that's not even a mate threat anymore. I could also check his king. Check his king from behind. Lots of ways to just draw that through perpetual check or repetition, but no way to make progress. Anyway, interesting games. So did they both end in a draw that time? Sometimes that happens. We were trying. Anyway, see you guys next time. Bye.